Okay, so we've all been there, right? Trying to relax after a crazy day, maybe get some work done, and bam! Your neighbor decides it's party time, or construction time, or time for a screaming match with, well, whoever. Sounds like you've already tried all the usual things to deal with noisy neighbors, but nothing seems to work. Well, that's exactly why we're doing this deep dive today. We're going to dig into these neighbor noise nightmares and hopefully unearth some surprising solutions you haven't thought of yet.
Yeah, it's actually kind of wild. Noise complaints are one of the biggest reasons neighbors end up fighting. Really shows you just how important our home environment is to, our overall well-being.
For real.
Yeah.
We're not just talking about a little annoyance here. This is about feeling comfortable, feeling safe in your own space. So for this deep dive, we've got a whole stack of sources, insights from conflict resolution experts, advice from a home protection guru, and even some, let's say, unconventional wisdom from a website dedicated to dealing with those difficult neighbors.
And it's not even just about silencing the noise. It's about the psychology behind it, you know, and figuring out how to get that sense of peace and control back.
Exactly. And that's what we're going to unpack today. Everything from the most common noise battles to some seriously creative solutions that might just surprise you. So let's kick things off with those classic noise complaints, the ones we hear about all the time. Our sources, they point to a few biggies. Music madness is, of course, always at the top of the list. We're talking those late-night parties, techno beats that put a club to shame, and karaoke nights that would make Simon Cowell run for the hills.
Oh, and don't forget about the shouting matches. Whether it's a little disagreement over a missing garden gnome or a full-blown argument that the whole neighborhood gets to enjoy. Those verbal volleys can be so disruptive, so stressful.
Ugh, tell me about it. And then there's the construction chaos. I mean, that jackhammer at the crack of dawn, it's like an earthquake, right? Makes it pretty impossible to have a peaceful morning. But here's where things get really interesting. Our sources, they also dive into the world of intentional harassment. Like, think about the neighbor who blasts Baby Shark on repeat. Talk about psychological warfare.
Seriously. And the thing is, no matter what kind of noise it is, the impact on you emotionally, it's huge. People feel frustrated, helpless, even violated. It's not just about the sound itself. It's about feeling disrespected, like you've lost control in your own home.
Absolutely. So how do we actually tackle this? Now, we always hear that communication is key, but our experts, they offer a more nuanced approach.
Yeah. For sure. Talking to your neighbor is often the first step, but it's not just about storming over there and yelling, "Turn it down!"
Right. Timing and tone, they're super important according to our sources. Like, don't ambush your neighbor in your PJs, especially when you're both already stressed out. Remember Sarah? Stormed over to her techno-loving neighbor in her pajamas. Let's just say it didn't go so well.
Oh, yeah, I remember that one. Instead, pick a time when you're both calm and approach the conversation with, empathy, not anger. You could try saying something like, "Hey, I've noticed you've been having some late-night gatherings lately, and I've been having a little trouble getting a good night's sleep because of the noise. Is there any way we could, maybe work something out?"
I like that. It's about acknowledging that they have a right to enjoy their space too, but also making it clear that you need some peace and quiet. Our sources also talk about the importance of active listening.
Yeah, for sure. Be open to hearing their side of things. Maybe they don't even realize how loud they're being, or maybe they're going through something tough that's making them a bit more boisterous.
Yeah, it could be. It's about finding some common ground, showing them that you're really trying to solve this thing together. Sometimes just having that conversation can make a huge difference.
It really can. And often that open dialogue can lead to some pretty creative solutions, ones you wouldn't have thought of on your own.
That's a great point. We'll dive into some of those creative solutions after a quick break. All right, so let's say you've had that talk. You've tried to be understanding, but the noise just keeps on coming. What do you do then? Well, our sources, they have a few more strategies up their sleeves, and some of these are pretty surprising.
One that really jumps out is the noise contract. It sounds kind of formal, I know, but basically it's a written agreement between you and your neighbor, where you spell out specific quiet hours, noise limits, even designated areas for certain activities.
Ooh, I like this one. It's like setting some ground rules that everyone agrees to.
Ooh.
Our sources even mention some really clever clauses people have used, like agreeing to only have band practice on certain days, or having a specific quiet zone in a shared backyard.
And it's not just about restrictions either. A noise contract can actually encourage some good vibes between neighbors. You could include things like inviting each other to gatherings, or even agreeing to help each other soundproof certain areas.
Right. It's not about being enemies. It's about finding a way to, peacefully coexist. But what if your neighbor just isn't into the whole noise contract idea? Or what if things escalate even after you've tried your best?
Well, in those cases, mediation could be a really useful tool. Basically, you bring in a neutral third party, a trained mediator. They can help you both have a productive conversation and hopefully guide you towards a solution you can both live with.
It's like having a referee for neighbor disputes, right?
Yeah.
Someone to keep things fair and productive. And you know what? Some cities even offer free or low-cost mediation services, specifically for these kinds of neighbor conflicts.
That's right. And while mediation can be really helpful, it's also super important to document everything. Keep a detailed noise journal. Write down the dates, the times, the types of noise you're dealing with.
Yeah, our sources actually suggest taking it a step further. Don't just jot down notes. Use a noise app to actually record the decibel levels. That way, you've got some objective data to back up your observations, especially if you need to involve your landlord or the authorities.
Absolutely. Having that concrete evidence can really strengthen your case. It shows that those noise levels are truly disruptive. Speaking of being objective, our home protection expert had a really interesting take on this whole thing.
Oh, okay. I'm intrigued. What does a home protection expert have to say about noisy neighbors?
Well, he argues that sometimes the best way to deal with it is to focus on protecting your own peace rather than trying to change your neighbor's behavior.
I see. So instead of fighting the noise head on, we find ways to minimize its impact on us. I like that. It's a proactive approach, right? Puts you back in control. But how do we actually do that?
He suggests creating what he calls a sound sanctuary. Basically, you use soundproofing and noise reduction techniques to minimize how much outside noise gets into your space.
It's like building your own little fortress of solitude, a quiet haven where you can escape all the chaos. And our sources, they have some great tips for creating that sanctuary, starting with your front door.
You'd be amazed how much noise sneaks in through those tiny cracks around the door jamb.
For real. So they recommend using weather stripping or a door sweep to create a tighter seal. And if your landlord's okay with it, you could even attach some sound dampening material to the inside of the door.
And then there are your windows, especially if you live in a busy area, lots of traffic or construction noise.
Yeah, makes sense. So our sources recommend a layered approach for windows. Start with some thick noise-reducing curtains or drapes. And then, if you really want to up your game, look into acoustic window inserts. They fit right into your existing window frames and add an extra layer of protection against sound.
Those can make a huge difference, especially for those high-pitched noises that cut right through regular windows.
It's amazing how far soundproofing technology has come. And if those options aren't enough, you can always explore some more involved methods, like adding mass-loaded vinyl to your walls, or even building a false wall with sound dampening insulation.
Those are definitely bigger projects, but they can be total game changers, especially for people who are dealing with constant noise.
So we've got the doors and windows covered, but what about those pesky walls, especially in apartments where they feel paper thin?
Well, hanging some thick tapestries or acoustic panels can help. They absorb sound, and they can actually look pretty cool too. And if you're feeling a little more DIY, you could build some bookshelves and strategically place them against shared walls. Creates a nice little sound barrier.
Those are great ideas. I love that they're both functional and stylish. But what if you're renting and you can't really make any big structural changes?
That's where clever furniture placement comes in. And soft furnishings, like putting a big plush sofa or a bookcase against a shared wall, can help absorb some of that sound. And don't underestimate the power of rugs and carpets. They can really soften echoes and reduce noise transmission.
Yeah, it's all about creating that layered approach, right? Using a bunch of different techniques to build your sound sanctuary.
Exactly. And while soundproofing is awesome for minimizing noise coming in, we can't forget about sound masking, which is all about using soothing sounds to cover up the unwanted noise.
Ah, yes. The magic of white noise. We've all heard of white noise machines, of course, but our sources suggest getting a little creative.
Like a simple fan or an air purifier can do wonders. That gentle whirring sound, it creates a constant background noise, which can really help to mask those random annoying sounds from your neighbors.
And then there's always the trusty noise-canceling headphones.
Yeah.
They're like your own personal cone of silence, blocking out all the distractions. So you can focus on work or relax or just enjoy some peace and quiet.
It's all about finding what works best for you. Your needs, your preferences. Don't be afraid to try out different combinations of techniques.
So we've covered a lot today, from having that initial conversation with your neighbor to creating a sound sanctuary in your own home. But remember, It's not about declaring war on noise. It's about finding ways to live together peacefully and respectfully. It's about finding that balance, right? Protecting your own peace,
Yeah.
but also respecting your neighbor's right to, enjoy their space. And sometimes that means getting a little creative.
Yeah, this whole topic is so interesting because it goes way beyond just noise. It makes you think about boundaries, communication, community even.
It really does. I mean, noisy neighbors can be super frustrating, that's for sure. But they can also be a chance to learn some valuable lessons about resolving conflicts and, building stronger relationships with the people around us.
Sometimes just reaching out and offering to help can make a huge difference. Maybe your neighbor's having trouble with a new puppy, or they don't even realize how loud their music is. Offering to help with pet training or soundproofing could actually turn a potential conflict into a positive interaction.
That's such a great point. It's about remembering that there's a person on the other side of that wall. Someone who might just need a little understanding, a little support, and sometimes even the smallest gestures can go a long way in creating a more peaceful living environment for everyone.
Absolutely. And remember, even if you've tried everything and you're feeling totally stuck, there are resources out there to help. A lot of cities have noise ordinances and mediation programs specifically for neighbor disputes.
Right. Don't be afraid to reach out to your landlord, your homeowners association, or even your local government. They can offer guidance and support. You have rights. You deserve to enjoy some peace and quiet in your own home.
Here's a final thought to leave you with. What if, instead of seeing noise as just a bad thing, we saw it as a chance to actually connect with our neighbors, to build a stronger sense of community?
I love that. It's about shifting our perspective, finding those unexpected moments of connection, even in the middle of all the chaos.
So the next time you're dealing with a neighbor noise nightmare, remember that you're not alone. There are solutions out there. There are resources. And there's definitely hope for a more peaceful and harmonious future.
And who knows? Maybe someday those annoying sounds will just be a distant memory, replaced by laughter and shared stories of a thriving, connected neighborhood. All right, that's it for our deep dive on neighbor noise nightmares. We hope you found some useful tips and strategies. Remember, it's all about communication, empathy, and finding that balance between right to peace and quiet, and your neighbor's right to, be a neighbor. Until next time, stay peaceful out there.